Hello and welcome. My name is Zaffar Iqbal and you are watching the Mojo Story. Chinese President Xi Jinping has decided to skip the upcoming G20 meeting in India, a departure from his previous attendance at every G20 summit since 2012. The reasons behind this move are unclear, but speculations include diplomatic tensions with India, a focus on bolstering the BRICS bloc, domestic economic challenge, and a desire to avoid tough questions on China's economic trajectory and military posturing. Xi's absence may signify a shift in his leadership style and China's diplomatic strategy, raising concerns about transparency and China's willingness to engage with global partners. To discuss this and more on the G20 summit, we're joined by an eminent panel. We're joined by Lieutenant General Rameshwar Yadav. He's an army veteran. Welcome to the show, sir. We are also joined by Amitabh Tiwari, political strategist and commentator. Welcome to Mojo Story, Amitabh Tiwari ji. Let me start with you, Lieutenant General Rameshwar Yadav. What do you think is the primary driving force for Xi to skip this G20 meet? He has not done it in the past ever. This is the first time that he's skipping it. Is it because of domestic tension, domestic problems, tensions with India, or a fear that there could be tough questions that would be asked in the meeting?
I think it's a mixed bag. And before we get on to the reasons per se, let us see what is the psyche of China. You see, China is a very, very insecure country. It is a landlocked country except its eastern seaboard. And even in front of eastern seaboard, he has got cousins with South Korea, with Japan, with Taiwan, with Philippines, with Vietnam, with Indonesia, with Malaysia, and thereafter once he crosses Strait of Malacca into Indian Ocean, that is India itself. So the entire trade and economy is dependent on areas where they have created problem for themselves. That is number one. Second is they have some kind of a cultural hubris, and that is because of their very what you can call it the self high image that they're carrying, and they are certainly in the wrong side of the history. They are still, as far as India is concerned, they're still nurturing their power and their stature as it was in 1962. So there are a lot of things which are going wrong here, and with that psyche, and moreover, with that psyche, they are moving ahead. And everybody knows in the world that China is the most unpredictable country. They can what they say they do not do, and what they do they do not say. Recently, they reported that they have published a map wherein they're showing
Yeah,
complete South China Sea uh, above the nine dash line, as well as
yeah,
our Aksai chain is concerned, Arunachal Pradesh is concerned. They're back to the old trick after
right.
having a dialogue with the Prime Minister Modi in Johannesburg just a fortnight back. That is the backdrop.
Absolutely,
Now,
absolutely.
coming.
Amitabh, let me take it to Amitabh
Okay.
Tiwari. The point of maps that you raise. China released these maps days before the G20 summit. The timing is very important here. What's the message that China wants to give? And it's not only India which has taken a strong view of the maps that were released by China, but other neighbors also, Philippines, Malaysia. What's the Chinese plan here? Does it want to be drawn into a shell and not to be uh, going on the center stage with other countries in the world?
See, India's rise in the world order has not been taken kindly by our neighbors, specifically Pakistan and China. Now, China has released these maps just before the G20 summit. First of all, to have keep its bloc together back in China, because there have been issues there as well, and you mentioned regarding the economic, etc. And just to create some sort of disturbance here, because he may not have attended, because he may not have hogged the limelight here, and may not have been comfortable with India hogging the limelight. Correct. He attended the BRICS summit perhaps because he got a fair, good or a VIP treatment there, and China believes that it is leading the BRICS. But here you have US, the European Union, China, and now India also rising on the world stage. So yeah, it has this tendency to lock horns with countries, and now with India specifically emerging as a competitor to China. Most of the countries now globally, the US, the EU, are looking at India to diversify their supply chains in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic. So there is a lot of competition as well between India and China to emerge now as the economy or as one of the stars of the global growth and the world economy going forward.
The important point you raise is that China's preference for smaller groups like BRICS, like SCO, but really not aligning itself to a bigger group like a G20. How does China go forward from here as far as ambitions are concerned? As you put it, that in those small groupings, perhaps it gets a VIP treatment, but in a larger gathering like a G20, it just but the President Xi does not take part in it. What is the significance here, Lieutenant General Rameshwar Yadav?
You see, China feels that there is a visual illusion that East is rising and West is going down. That is their mindset. So it is a game, the game wherein they are trying to push through a narrative, thereby saying, "Ki, look, we are stronger." That is number one. It is more of a facade. It is a false front that China is creating. And because of the false front, even in the economic front, you look at it, the economy is going down in a big way. If you look at the infrastructure and the real estate, which is 30% of the GDP, that is on the verge of insolvency. There's the unemployment 25% to 30%. The banking system is going down primarily in their BRI scheme. The number of the small countries who have taken massive loans, they are not returning because they do not have capability to repay back the bank. So the banking system is crumbling. Now, in order to show that we are stronger, they are trying to create a false front. And in case Xi Jinping comes to G20, all these things are going to get highlighted. You see, G20, let's look at it. What is the purpose? Purpose is economic and the financial matters. And so that we draw policies for international forum so that there is no cooperation in financial and economic means. That's where China is a defaulter as of now. So they are going to get exposed if they come here. More and more than that, like Mr. Tiwari has said, this is going to be a Western bloc heavy organization. These are big economies. When they come here and they're bound to raise the question of Ukraine. And as far as Ukraine is concerned, China is seen 100% aligned with Russia. In fact, they call it is a friend with no limits. And in case China comes here, and even if there is a mention, even on the sidelines, regarding the Ukraine, so it will be very embarrassing for him. And more so because he has got nothing under their control as far as Russia is concerned. Russia is doing what they want to do. So it is a very odd situation. So best way out is do the missing act from the G20 altogether. And moreover, the biggest obsession is the India because they have not been able to formulate how to deal with India in present times. The way India's studying stature is rising as on date. They came to Ladakh 3 years back and now they do not know how to go back because they have not achieved their objective at all. And in case they go back, then they should go back from the position of strength. And we have not given them any window to create that position of strength. And in case Xi Jinping comes to India, it will be taken that as if they are trying to agree, they may agree to a peace solution to our border issues, which is not in their dictionary as of now.
Yeah, but I wanted to come to the larger point. India achieving G20 presidency. How significant is it, Amitabh? The fact that global leaders will be coming to India. Of course, the world order so far has been dominated by the Western. way of looking at things, by the Western thought, do you think that now is the time for India to assert itself on the world stage as far as this new developing world order is concerned? And one of the indicators is obviously India hosting the G20 summit in Delhi.
Yeah, so it definitely provides a great opportunity for India to put its thoughts on world issues on a global platform. It also gives India one of the opportunities to attract investments, because India needs
Yeah,
investments in the infrastructure sector. And also,
yeah,
since this bloc is now almost occupies or accounts for 75% of the world trade, it also gives us an opportunity to strengthen our trade ties with these nations. See, we've held events, I think, in 60 cities. I think
yes,
nowhere else has these G20 summit been so expansionary in that sense. So uh, we have also led the hosts, as hosts, the citizens or the officials of the
yeah,
G20 countries to
yeah,
many of our cities, including Kashmir, wherein we've shown them perhaps at the how the peace has returned to the valley, and how different cities and different regions have different cultures, and how India is diversity, and shown them how the diverse nature of India is. So it gives a platform to India, of course, to emerge on the world stage, because the world also is looking at India, as I said, to emerge as an alternative to China, because India is not only a big market, consumption market. Now India is also looking at exports and substituting China in the supply chain globally, because after the pandemic, the world has realized that the
but
dependence
but
on
but
China
but
was too
but can India become a manufacturing hub? Can it replace China? That's the big question. You know, the amount of the protectionist measures, the tariffs that is there, that has been the complaint of the West. Can it really, you know, eventually replace China as a manufacturing hub? Because that is very crucial. If India has to be there where it aspires to be, as Prime Minister Modi said, among the top three economies of the world, then it has to make certain change. Do you think that is quite possible, Lieutenant General Rameshwar Yadav?
Everything is possible, provided we have the political will. And this is what
Yeah,
being shown by the present government. They are gradually easing the way the investment has to come in into the country. The ease of doing business is certainly have gone up many times, many folds. Lot of infrastructure is coming up in the
yeah,
country so as to facilitate all these factories coming in here. As a technology concern, we have already showcased our technological prowess by our space venture, what we saw recently, Chandrayaan 3. As far as
yes,
economy is concerned, it is in front of everybody. We are the fastest growing economy despite the COVID that pandemic that was there few 2 years ago. And moreover, our stature is rising by the day, and the kind of security and safety, the infrastructure, the power, the water that we can provide, everybody is looking at us. So it is very much possible. Yes, it will take time. Means things, industrial development and establishment of factories do not take overnight. It will
yeah.
take time, but we are on the right line.
Absolutely. Amitabh Tiwari, the point again comes that, so far India has been successfully been able to do that balancing act. On one hand, we've been buying oil from Russia. On the other hand, we're a part of Quad. We are very close to the Western powers. But will India be able to sustain this in the long run, or eventually it will have to make a choice? It may not be possible in the long run. At the moment, you know, it's seen as a counter to China by some Western countries. But India will obviously have to make certain choices also in order to be seen as a clear alternative to China and to emerge on the world stage as a big economy.
Yeah, see, so India earlier was part of the non-aligned movement. Correct.
Yeah,
So continuing with the same philosophy, I would say, it is today part of G20. It is today part of Quad. It is asking for the inclusion of the African Union in the G20. It has been able to explain to the world why it needs Russia for its oil needs. And to give credit to the government, India has not been criticized globally to have different positions with these issues. Also, India and Russia enjoy historical ties. There are people level ties. Despite India's slight tilt towards the US, you would see that the Indians still favor Russia in a positive manner. So India has been able to manage these contradictions on the global scale as of now, and I would say that uh, since foreign policy is a continuity in that sense, most of the governments have followed this single track. And what is perhaps the most important here, as sir was saying, is that India today is required by the world. Why? Because it has 140 crore people and they need or they demand goods ranging from a needle to an aircraft. Correct. And then India today is perhaps the only country which has this demographic advantage, this population, the highest youth population, which in turn could produce goods and services for the entire world. So that's why we are at a
Absolutely.
very safe spot, and we have been able to take advantage of this under this current regime, continuing with the efforts of the Manmohan Singh government.
Talking of advantage, don't you think that it's a positive that India has equation with the Western powers at the same time it's close to Russia? In fact, India can play a very crucial role in the resolution of conflicts. That's what India is doing in its recent interview with the news agency PTI. Prime Minister Modi said that dialogue is the way forward as far as Russia-Ukraine concept is concerned. India has that clout. It can use that neutrality on the world stage to broker peace and to end conflicts. That's where India's role can also come into play. Lieutenant General Rameshwar Yadav.
You see, I look at it, the strength of India lies in our non-aligned policy. You see, we are non-aligned by aligning with everybody. We have got very good equation with the Western powers. We have got very good equation with the Russia, and to some extent, in economic field, we have working relationship even with China also. So we have a number of choices, and we are one. We are non-controversial, uh, largely, and therefore we are certainly in a position to ensure that
Yeah,
wherever there are conflict zones, including
yeah,
Ukraine, we can play a very pragmatic and very useful role. And this is what our government has been talking about. And it is for the two parties which are in conflict, they have to sit together. India can only facilitate that thing. And it is
yes,
not only India, the number of other countries, like minded countries, they have to come
yeah.
together to resolve all these issues. So, therefore, India in a very strong position. Another, as we are rising economically, militarily, and politically, uh, we are being looked upon as a country to reckon with.
Absolutely. Amitabh, I want to come to the point of Russia. You know, President Putin is not coming to India. It's very significant in the sense that because there would be discussions on the Russia-Ukraine war. It's not the war just between two countries. There are a lot of things involved. There's a supply chain that got broken because of the war, the inflation, the other things that came along. So obviously those discussions will take place. And President Putin not coming to India, how significant is that?
See, essentially, I think he also did not attend the BRICS meet and also the earlier G20 meet in Bali. Correct. So, as you said, uh, if he were here, he is going to face uncomfortable questions on the Ukraine war.
Yeah.
Secondly, he has also threatened most of the countries with stoppage of supply of gas. So there is not a very harmonious relationship, I would say, between Putin and the other West world leaders. Uh, that's why probably he has skipped and he has given an official reason, or not official, but it is rumored that he has given a reason that he is engaged with the Ukraine war and perhaps he's not been able to come. But the good part is that, unlike Ziping, perhaps he has himself called Modi, if I'm not wrong, and informed him of the reasons as to why Putin is not coming, and also thanked him for the continued support in that sense on the Indian Ukrainian war stance which India has taken. He could also have faced embarrassment if some tough statement is placed in the joint declaration on the war. So that's why perhaps he has chosen not to attend the summit.
Right. General Rameshwar Yadav, coming back to China, what could be the implication if President Xi is not coming? Putin's already made it clear that he's not coming. Uh, could there be more implications on the overall, deliberation that will take place? Because two important powers, the leaders of two important powers, are not taking part in those deliberations.
You see, obviously, the two big powers, if they are not part of deliberations, there will be some kind of a shortfall, and probably the communique which is going to be issued, they will be left out of that, and it is going to be Western bloc predominant kind of a communique, unless it is being moderated suitably by the organizers, that is India and like-minded countries, so as to ensure that there is continued synergy and cooperation as far as finance economic field is concerned throughout the world. So, but whereas I feel that the impact is not going to be so much that is going to change the complete financial system or economic synergies or supply chains to that extent. So it is wait and see how it emerges. But only thing I will put across that by not attending this G20, the China will get isolated, and they are getting exposed by the day.
Absolutely. China getting isolated. There's a war, Ukraine Russia war, that seems unending. Nobody knew what were the objectives of Russia when they went to war with Ukraine in the first place. In the backdrop of a pandemic, so many things happen, and now this summit is taking place. Amitabh Tiwari, how do you see what would be the possible outcome given the developments that are taking place across the globe and in India's neighborhood and in Russia and in China and in other countries?
I think, see, the G20 has a strategic role to play in
Yeah.
shaping the future economic growth and prosperity of not only the countries who participate in the meeting, but also globally. So even if Putin and Xi Jinping are not there, their representatives are going to be there. Now, I think India's negotiation skills or its ability to play the role of mediator in conflicts will be tested in framing of the joint declaration, I think. And that, I think, will be fairly important in the sense that there has never been a summit, if I'm not wrong, where a joint declaration has not been adopted. And
Yes.
with China and Russia having veto powers, there could be some issues here. If India is somehow able to arrive at a consensus or lead the parties to arrive at a consensus and come up with a joint declaration, not only with respect to the Ukraine war, but also, as you mentioned, the strategic roadmap for the for improvement in the per capita income of citizens of the developing countries, for improvement in the world GDP, for improvement in better bilateral ties and trade ties, then it could be a very successful event in the end.
Consensus is the key point, as you put it rightly. India's economy may not be as big as the Chinese economy, is 5 times bigger, but India has the soft power and it's the world of ideas. If India puts across ideas on the table which are acceptable to all, then obviously India has arrived in a way that it's able to deal with the world issues and give suggestions to resolve those world issues. Thanks so much. That's all the time we have on the show. Thanks so much for joining us, and thanks for watching Mojo Story.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.